Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For Such a Time as This, a podcast about calling, timing, and trusting God in the season that you're actually in, not just the one you hope to be in. My name's Bethany, and I'm your host. This season is our second season. It's called Single and Set Apart. So I'm talking to Christian singles or people that were single kind of later in life but aren't single anymore. And I'm super excited for what you guys might learn in this season. So let's just sit back, relax, and see what God might have for you in this episode. Hi guys, this is my friend Dawn, and I'm super excited to have her on today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's just jump right in. So, can you tell kind of your story of marriage and what that season of life looked like for you?
Sure. So I married kind of young, I guess, by my generation standard. I was married at 22. I was married for about 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
I like to joke that Proverbs 22:24 says, "Don't be friends with an angry man." And I married him. So it was a lot. He had mental health issues. He was diagnosed bipolar and borderline personality disorder, which got worse the longer we were together. And a lot of people say, well, why did you marry him to begin with? But I think in the church circles that I grew up in, that was kind of what we were raised to do. It wasn't that women couldn't have careers and couldn't have jobs, but that was kind of the ultimate goal, was to get married and have kids and raise kids. And that was, what you did. So I was pretty shy when I was younger, which is always a surprise to people that know me now. I'm a lot different now, probably because a lot of that.
Okay.
And I didn't have a whole lot of boyfriends, and those that I did were abusive in varying ways. So I just didn't have confidence in myself. Yeah. So I just kind of thought that's the way it was. And if there was a problem, it must be my fault because, that was the pattern.
Right. How did it go navigating raising kids? Because you had two boys.
Yeah.
Raising kids and being in an abusive relationship. How was that?
I played peacekeeper a lot. I tried to, I guess I don't want to say take the brunt of it, because it wasn't all bad. It wasn't like 24/7, abusive. It was not physical abuse. It was mental abuse and emotional abuse, to me and to the boys. They had a hard time, I guess. He would get set off very easily by silly things, or what most people would consider silly things. So a lot of it was just kind of being the buffer for most of the time. And thankfully they were, until they got older, they didn't realize all that was going on. So that I'm thankful for. But
when did you hit the point where you were like, something needs to change, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, so probably we were married probably a good 15 or so years that it was just back and forth. And there were varying degrees. It got worse as the years went on. He had diabetes, so he was chronically ill. He ended up losing his leg and had his leg amputated. So that was, I think, kind of the beginning of the end, just in him dealing with that. And then he lost his mom, who was, I think, the only person that probably kept him somewhat
stable.
Yeah. And so then after that, it was just really hard. And the abuse got more towards the boys and was influencing them and their decisions, and finally just decided that we needed to have a talk, and maybe it was time to move on. So we really didn't think that we were going to be able to do that financially, that we would just have to figure out how to be roommates. So we did try that for a couple months, but it went downhill quickly and became a dangerous situation. So we needed to move on.
Was it just building up over time? Was there like a specific moment that you guys decided like, okay, we're actually gonna just separate?
I think it was more for me, it was just his involvement in other things. He decided he wanted to join a motorcycle club.
Mm.
Things that were just destructive behavior in general. And then, like I said, we were going to try to do that, but it did become a dangerous situation that we had to get the police involved, and that was the end.
What kind of emotions did that bring up for you? Like choosing to separate, like fear, rejection, grief?
It was
of
hard.
marriage?
It was hard because, again, especially growing up in that Christian community, I spent a lot of years that no one really knew the truth of the matter. Of course, now I find out after the fact that people are not, people are smarter than we give them credit for. So we can try to keep those things secret, but they're really not. It just people don't know the degree. So it was difficult to have to say, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe this wasn't the right choice to begin with.
Yeah.
Because I think that the biggest thing going back is that God redeems our mistakes. And for me, I think I know that that was not the best choice for me to marry him. But again, that's what you did. You needed a husband to take care of you and to provide for you. And there came a point that I actually went back to school to get my degree because I knew that at some point, I think deep down, I was going to have to be able to take care of the boys on my own. Honestly, I thought it would be because of his health, and that he would no longer be capable or that he wouldn't be around anymore.
Yeah.
And then come to find out it was just, that was what happened anyway.
Yeah.
But again, I probably would not have said that me marrying him in the first place was God's will, but God redeems the mistakes that we make, and I have 2 wonderful boys as a result of that, and so
Yeah. How did your identity shift after that marriage was over?
that's a lot. It again, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence when I was younger and when I got married, and was still kind of trying to find my place. And I don't know that I ever really even did that until things started going wrong, because I had to start stepping out on my own. I had to start addressing things on my own. And so I definitely gained that confidence. I learned to trust God in some ways that I never thought I would have to.
Yeah.
So it made my relationship with him a lot stronger. I think that it gave me a heart for women in general, but especially young women like you, to be more out there, to say, be smart the first time.
Yeah.
Don't, your plan is out there for you. Wait on God. And so I think it definitely strengthened my relationship with God. It strengthened my relationship with my kids, because we kind of fortified together.
Yeah.
So yeah, family and God became essential.
So you were in your 40s when that happened? Okay.
46.
So what was it like to transition back to being single when you were 46? Was it like, it felt like freedom or overwhelming?
It was a little bit of both. It was scary because at the time, because of his mental instability, it was, again, a dangerous situation. We had to kind of keep secret where we moved to and didn't let people know a whole lot of things. So that was scary from that aspect. But then there were these times that just sitting alone in, a house that I rented on my own and was able to do that peace that passes all understanding that the Bible talks about. There were definitely moments that I could sit there, and when you just know that you know that you know where you're supposed to be and that you're in his will, there really is a difference in that, and a peace that comes with that, even with all the craziness.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you, so your story has a little bit of a complexity because he passed away before the divorce was finalized,
He
right?
did.
So how did you process the complexity of that?
That, I honestly have to say, that was when I did feel freedom. I don't even know that freedom is the right word. I think I should say I felt delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have an interesting story that initially there was a lady that I worked with. She was old Southern Baptist, and if she would get going, you knew she was ready to start preaching, and you just had to listen up. And for some reason, she always called me Moses. From the day I worked there. I don't know why. I don't know what, but she would always call me Moses. And she knew that I was a Christian, and we would have a lot of conversations. And one day I just went to her at the beginning of all of this and said, I think it's time to go. I think, God's telling me that it's time to move on now. And she said to me, do you know why you're in the middle of the Red Sea?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why God hasn't closed the sea yet is because you and the boys are still in it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. And I didn't really give much thought to it. And then there were two people that I was very close to. One is a youth pastor, and another one is a reverend. She does prison ministry and women's ministry and a lot of different things. And I talked to both of them about the situation, completely unattached conversations. They didn't know that I was talking to the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talked to her, she said to me, what the Lord is telling me right now is that you just need to be still. You need to be still and see what the Lord will do.
Mm-hmm.
And when she told me that, I thought, that sounds really familiar. So I went and I looked it up, and it comes from Exodus, at the time that the children of Israel had been released from Egypt, and they were at the Red Sea, and they were grumbling to Moses saying, we should go back and we're all going to die. And Moses said, stand fast and see what the Lord is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming from what the lady at work just told me about the Red Sea,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to the other person, and he said, you've been in Egypt too long. It's time for you to be delivered.
Wow.
So there,
hey, God.
yeah, sometimes, I need a brick to hit me in the head, and he knows that. So I always kind of tell God, write it on the sidewalk, because I'm not confident enough to figure it out for myself. And the Bible talks about double witnesses. So this was a triple witness that nobody knew from the other ones.
Yeah.
So I did talk to my oldest son about it, and I had told him the situation. And we were at our home one night, and we got a phone call from our next door neighbor at our other house, and she said that we needed to get over there, that there was a lot of medical teams there and an ambulance and police cars, and she thought we needed to come over. And I asked her, I said, is he gone? And she said, I don't know. You just need to come over. And right after that, I got a call from the police department, from police officers. And so my son and I went over, and we were met by 5 police officers that walked over to our car and said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but we found him in the house. And we just needed you to come verify. And my son looked at me and said, Mom, that God closed the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a moment that was sad for, obviously him and the suffering that he went through mentally, because mental health is something that I don't think is addressed enough in the church and Christian community.
Yeah.
It's treated as, oh, you just need to have more faith, or you need to pray more, and in some cases that may be true, but mental health issues are real. They're medical, they're diagnosable, you can get help. And sometimes God expects us to use doctors and medication too.
Right. Yeah.
So it was, I hoped that he professed to being a believer. Again, only God knows his heart, but we rest in that hopefully he has peace now from, this life that he had such a hard time with. But in that moment, it was also a feeling, I didn't think I'd get emotional. It was also a feeling of being delivered, of being rescued. And so,
Yeah. And have you like navigated like the emotional closure and like forgiveness after that?
I think if I have to be honest, I am more indifferent now about the situation. I still struggle with forgiveness, if I'm going to be honest about it. And I think that, I think God gave me a story for a reason, so I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. But forgiveness is something I'm still working on. I'm grateful for, the growth that I had during that circumstance. I'm grateful for, everything that God did during that time. But I do still struggle with the forgiveness, I think.
Which is fair. What did you discover yourself? What did you discover about yourself like after the marriage was over, outside of being married? Because you were married so young, so like in your 40s was your first like time by yourself, really. So what did you learn about yourself?
That I'm strong, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, but I can do things on my own too, that he made me strong and capable and confident. And I'm in my 50s now, and so I don't know that I can say that I know who I am. I kind of feel like Alice when the caterpillar says, "Who are you?" And she's like, I don't know who I am anymore. I've been, a bunch of different people just since this morning I changed. And so I kind of feel that's how my life is now, that I'm constantly looking and growing and deciding who I want to be when I grow up.
So what did you have to unlearn about love?
Yeah. When I first, I guess, kind of started out as single, I knew that I was not closed off to another relationship or new relationships. I didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want.
Right.
I don't know that I knew what love was, but I knew what it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started.
Hey, you guys, it's me again. Don't worry, I'll be right back with our guests. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Let's sit and think about what might have been said that can relate to your life today. And if you're enjoying it, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, comment, all the things. You can find us on YouTube for Such Time as This with Bethany Garner, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. All right, let's get back to them. How did you meet your current partner that you're with now?
On Plenty of Fish, which I think is losing a little bit of the stigma that it has. When we've been together for almost 9 years, and we met online. We used to kind of hide that from people and be like, "Oh, we met at Libs," and because we didn't want that stigma. But I think in this day and age, it's normal because life is so busy, and it's unless, you have a large circle of people
Right.
to tap into, if you go to a large church or, at work, it's different. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
a lot of people meet online
yeah,
nowadays. Um, what felt different about this relationship compared to your last one?
I felt seen.
Okay.
I felt seen. I felt like I could be myself. I didn't have to, um, I didn't have to try to be what I thought someone else wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could just be, who I was discovering that I was.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you had to go through like a phase by yourself of healing before you got into a new relationship?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Um,
What did
uh,
that look like?
I spent a lot of time with my friends. Um, I'm lucky enough to have a couple really close, deep friends that are more like sisters, one of which is your mother. Hi, Mom. So that was very helpful to me. They're also very strong Christian women. So it was that um, feeding off of them as well, to not for my identity so much, but to refill a cup that had been empty for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
How did you learn to trust someone again?
That's an interesting question because I don't know. I don't know that there was ever a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just a personal thing that when we met, I just knew. I really felt that God brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so from the moment that I met him, there was an immediate comfort and safe space
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have before. And he was not, obviously, I met a couple other people before that.
Okay.
Nothing serious. We didn't plan on being serious. We only planned on, because he was divorced and he had a rocky relationship as well. And we really just kind of thought somebody to hang out with, somebody to talk to.
Okay.
Neither one of us really planned on another relationship.
I guess that kind of takes the pressure off of it too.
Yeah, because
If
we
that's
really weren't
what you're looking for.
looking for that,
Yeah.
and I had met a couple other people just briefly, and I remember the first time it was my first date in, I don't know, probably 25 years, and I cried the entire way home because I just thought this is my life. This is how it's going to be. And it was terrible. And, yeah. And then I met Tony, who's my partner now, and it just clicked for both of us. So, yeah.
What would you tell, like, if there's a younger girl that's trying to decide what safe love feels like, what would you tell her to, like, be observant of?
Follow your gut.
Okay.
Follow your gut. I would also say don't just pay attention to how he treats you, pay attention to how he treats other people.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly pay attention to people that he doesn't have to impress.
Mm-hmm.
Servers at restaurants, or, people that in that sort of capacity that you don't have to make an impression with, or you don't have to pay attention to things that people do, not what people say.
Mm-hmm. What's it been like being in a healthy, loving relationship after what you've walked through?
Mm. Beautiful is the first word that comes into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It is, it's a true partnership. It's a give and take. And I know people always say that what partnerships it's, 50-50, and it's really not 50-50. It's 100-100. And if there's always going to be days that you or your partner is not at that 100 level. So sometimes you have to give 120, not 100. And then, but it's supposed to be both of you. It should be a focus on taking care of each other. I don't, of course, I still take care of myself. He still takes care of himself. But there's a lot of things that we worry about taking care of each other. So when that happens, it's this nice balance that you don't have to worry as much about yourself because somebody else is looking out for you too.
That's true. Has there been like a new level of joy that you've encountered?
Yeah. Yeah. We are so lucky that our families get along. So I have my 2 sons. He has 2 daughters. And from the time they have met, and we were a little worried about that because they were both grown people when we met. So it wasn't like little kids that were going to grow up together. So there had the potential to be a lot of friction there.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. And if you would see our 4 kids together now on any given day, no one would know that they didn't
grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very close. They take care of one another. They look out for one another, which that in itself is, a relief to us because of course, our children were our most important things coming into this. And and now we have one grandchild and we have another one on the way. So yeah, our families are growing together, and that's exciting.
That is. And I'm sure it's fun because you had just boys and he had just girls for you each to experience the other.
It's a different dynamic for sure. And a little bit, I can go to tea, if I want to.
Right.
He has somebody to talk sports with. And
Right.
Of course, I am a huge football fan, though. Now that, I always loved my Ravens, but now I love football. So there's been that too.
What about peace? How has your peace been changed since your last relationship to now?
The biggest thing I think that I've learned is that first and foremost, peace comes from God. There's no alternative to that, regardless of relationships, regardless of, parent and child relationships. There is nothing that takes the place of the peace that you can get from a grounded relationship with God. There's just nothing past that. But it's nice to not have to constantly think about, am I doing enough? Should I do more? Do I need to lose weight? Should I change the color of my hair? It's when a relationship is true, it's so much deeper than all of the things that when we're younger and when we're dating and that seems so important that then, once you're in that relationship, you realize that's not the stuff that makes the difference. That's not where that comes from. And that pouring from an empty cup really is true. So to have someone constantly filling that cup for you to be able to continue to pour out of, it really does make a difference.
Looking back, what do you think are some of the most important things that God taught you through every part of the journey that you've been on?
To wait on God, to not think that I need to help. I have a bad habit of trying to be Holy Ghost Junior and thinking that, well, God, here's what I need.
Right.
So let me help you out and tell you how it needs to happen. And I will tell you that whenever you do that, he will absolutely do things in such a way that is nothing like what you thought. But there was a definite point in my marriage when it was just overwhelming that I was in an empty house, and I remember just yelling, God, if I'm your daughter, where are you and why are you letting this happen? And I am done.
Mhm.
Well, that done, I think, was really him going, finally, now move out of the way and let me take care of it. And so that is probably the biggest thing that I've learned is God is always on time. And we need to make sure that sometimes we're not the reason that, someone once told me that sometimes you have to know when to duck so that God can get the punch where it needs to go.
Right.
So
That's good. Okay, a couple like final questions for you. What would you say to someone who feels like they're stuck in an unhealthy relationship and doesn't know when to leave or how to leave?
get help.
Mm-hmm.
Get real help. Obviously I would say start with your friends, start with your family, start with your church.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to, you're not there to please a church. Your marriage isn't there to please a church. Um, therapy is important. There are resources out there for men and women. My case, it was, that way, but there are, other relationships that, are similar. They're just not, I think, as talked about.
Right.
But there are resources out there. And if someone is trying to talk you into staying in something, there's a difference between trying to work on a relationship and trying to, work things out together. People have issues. People, need to work out things. But if it's a dangerous situation and that, don't let anybody tell you otherwise, and do whatever you need to do to get help.
Yeah. I think that's important to hear because even still today, like in the church world, it's often like, no, divorce isn't an option. Figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not in that situation, you can't. I remember women at church coming up to me during all of this, and everybody knew. I don't want to say he's crazy because that sounds terrible, but I mean, he was certifiably crazy. And, what the boys and I were going through. And I remember women coming up to me at church and taking my hands and going, how's he doing? Just be there for him. Be a comfort to him. And I remember talking to one of the elders at the church at the time, and I said, if one more person tries to tell me to be a soft pillow for my husband to land, I'm going to choke him with it. And, it is, ideally, yes, I think it's God's will that we should be married, that we should be families, that that is our focus. But again, you need to wait on God's timing for God to choose that person, for God to make that happen.
Right.
And maybe you're not supposed to be married. There are plenty of people in the Bible that were not married.
That's true too.
And so culturally, that was a thing at the time. But I think that as women, we are so blessed to be in the time that we're in now, that God is using women. Joel says that your sons and daughters will prophesy. And so a lot of churches still look at biblical norms as doctrine instead of cultural.
Right.
And, and I'm not trying to say that, absolutely, I believe that God still believes in marriage, but that may not be entirely what he has for you. So you need to be connected to God and be connected to his plan for you. And maybe that's marriage and maybe it's not.
Yeah. What about the person that's scared to start over again later in life? What do we say to them?
I'll tell you what my son told me. So, your mom gave me a nickname a few years back. Your mom kind of started this Wonder Woman thing. So, I was kind of really beat down and I was really having a hard time. And your mom said to me, I said, I'm only human. And she said, really? Because I kind of thought you were Wonder Woman. And it's stuck ever since. And now every year, a thing that your mom sees that's Wonder Woman, she gives to me. But so when I was struggling in the beginning of, not wanting to do this, my son kind of threw the Wonder Woman thing back to me and said, you have to remember, though, Wonder Woman didn't do things by herself.
True.
She was part of the Hall of Justice. So you need to go out and find your super friends and find your Justice League. So we're not meant to do life alone, which asking for help for me was really hard. It still is. I look at it as a weakness, vulnerability. The word vulnerable just makes me feel sick to my stomach. But you need to reach out, not necessarily as a romantic relationship, but get involved in your church if that's a good and sound place that you can trust the people there. Find your friends, find your super friends. And it's okay to be transparent. Now that's not to say it doesn't come with a caveat of making sure that the people you're being open with and transparent with are trustworthy.
Right.
But find those people and be vulnerable and let them fill you back up.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I love you. I'm thankful to be
I love
here.
you too. Good. Yay. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us today. I really loved having you here. If you liked this episode, make sure you share it with someone you know. I'd also love if you guys would comment any questions you might have that we can answer on future episodes. Remember that each one of you was born for such a time as this. Until next time, bye!